Hello and welcome to some more Starters, and today I wanted to talk and probably rant a bit about the King of Trade and a lot of people's favourite ship. They've been wondering where it is, the Banu Merchantman. It's going to be a mixture of what we know about the ship, about the evolution of the ship from the past, and what do we think's coming, and some various theorycraft pieces too. So, what is the Banu Merchantman? Banu traders are renowned for their merchant prowess, travelling the space lanes and trading with everyone from humans to Vandal. Their sturdy, dedicated trading ships are prized beyond all other transports, sometimes passing from generation to generation of Banu. It's a massive trade ship, similar to Spanish trade galleons of old, with enough weaponry to be able to defend itself. Now, any weapons or equipment we talk about, they're currently going through a giant refactor in the guise of Item System 2.0 anyway, and the Banu in general are likely to go through a lot of changes. The Merchantman will go through a lot of changes and tweaking and development, so just bear that in mind. This is all basically theorycraft, even though it's reasonably educated theorycraft. Some of it will be my own personal rants and wants and needs and whatever, so just bear that in mind. I suppose we should go through the basics of what the Banu are as an alien species, because it's an alien ship, and aliens are alien to us. So the Banu are a collection of planet states. They're very much into their coin as a species. They don't have a standing army like the humans do, but they do have militias. They use militias and can call on their people to gather an army together if necessary. So they'll just grab all their ships and come to the battle. Though they don't like to do that because it gets in the way of making money, and that's what they like to do. Going back to the Spanish galleon analogy earlier, the merchantman will be able to handle itself in a fight. These ships basically are called to serve for military purposes if required. The Banu's lore and style are still being fleshed out. This is the main influence to the Banu merchantman, obviously. Rather than being based on a manufacturer's style guide, like Anvil or RSI ships are, the merchantman will be based on the more broad Banu style guide, because basically the races for the aliens at the moment anyway are the manufacturers. They're saying Vandal manufacture these Vandal ships. The Banu manufacture these ships, not Anvil or RSI. Remember, they're also alien, which means that they may not seem too normal to us. Some of the essential features for humans might not be the same for a merchantman. So that will probably be seen in the interior of the ship. Obviously, the Banu are humanoid, so that makes it less likely to have crazy oddities, like if you were having a ship that was for an insectoid race. They might have some sort of weird pods or like weird ladder setups where they're just running around, jumping around the ship. But, for example, Vandal ships have low gravity, so the Vandal jump around to get places is the idea, I believe. So this is a slightly interesting one. In my opinion, the Banu Merchantman might have influenced the race more than the other way round. Because of the way they talked about and released the Banu Merchantman on concept sale, it might more directly influence the direction of the race of Banu now than it would have otherwise. So we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens. But let's talk about the evolution of the ship in general, actually. It was announced at the $27 million funding mark, and basically the ship was described as being an adaptable, fast, armoured smuggling ship capable of running blockades and escaping authorities, but also as a massive cargo hauler and even a travelling bazaar by Chris Roberts with a receiving room for traders. So, which is it? Because hopefully it will avoid the same trap that the Cutlers fell into, where it was trying to do too much or promised too much. Now, hopefully with the Banu Merchantman, it has enough of a direction that it won't fall into that trap. The Banu Merchantman was inspired by games like Ultima Online, where players could set up their own stalls to sell goods that they'd crafted or collected themselves. And that is one of the cornerstones of the Banu Merchantman. They want it to be that travelling bazaar. They want it to have a bit more flavour than a normal cargo ship. It is a trade ship. And as such, it can fulfill a lot of different roles. So let's kind of talk about those. So it's almost certainly going to have that travelling bazaar kind of feel, where you'll be able to have it as pretty much a mobile shop. And they've talked about having mobile shops even with the Caterpillar, I believe, where one of the modules was originally going to be a mobile shop, effectively, that you could do some trade in space. But also there's going to be contracts in-game and that sort of thing. And they're talking about having them in the mini persistent universe even relatively soon with service beacons and that sort of jazz. So it's not too hard to think that they're going to keep that travelling bazaar, that travelling trade shop going with that Banu merchantman. But in lore, the Banu merchantman is also supposed to kind of be the lifeline to mining and backwater outposts or colonies. It wasn't unheard of for miners to spend unhealthy portions of their pay to buy rare and unique items that the Banu merchant had collected along the way of their travels. When the last customer ship would leave, the Banu merchantman would simply close up shop and move to the next system. It was also asked in some of the original concept document stuff, what makes the merchantman cool? The Banu merchantman isn't just a ship, it's a home, a way of life. We know a lot of backers want to become traders and merchants in Star Citizen's Persistent Universe, and we've created a ship that's more than just a sterile bulk freighter for you. The merchantman is a travelling bazaar capable of landing or docking and then inviting locals in to view its cargo holds and what it has to offer. The ship design, perfected by generations of Banu development, is intended to offer a combination of high speed and durability. While the Banu is less configurable than that of the Caterpillar or a Starfarer, there's still plenty of room to take the ship in different directions, from black market trade platforms to deadly Q ships. It's a force to be reckoned with. Basically, a Q ship there is a pirate hunter, basically. They'd pretend that they didn't have weapons, and then when ships came close or submarines came close, they'd go, "Bah! We've got weapons! Kapew!" So yeah, they're traders. They're dressed as traders, but they could be police or whatever. So I expect that we're going to get some very good roles out of the Banu. Smuggling, trade, differentiating trade from cargo. Trade, I would actually suggest that you're making contracts on the fly, going to places, having that bizarre cargo would literally just be cargo hauling. I think it would be perfectly great for that. It's going to be similar, I think, in size to at least the Hull C. Probably a reasonable size bigger. We'll have to actually wait and see when it's actually fully built out now. We can't go by the stats. We can only use them as a spirit guide. It would be that mobile shop, as I said, but a Q ship is totally reasonable. I think it's going to have reasonable combat capabilities, strong front guns, enough to be able to take out fighters. We'll talk more about that in a minute, actually. I also think it's going to be very, very useful as a resupply and restocking ship for fleets as well. I think that it's going to have that military capability, so it's going to be able to fend for itself, and it's not going to be too weak. So you could have it as a convoy and that sort of stuff, and not have to worry about it too much. So now, obviously, an important part of the direction that the Banu merchantman will go will be based on how they implement cargo and trade. Now, cargo implementation, they have talked about a reasonable amount. It looks pretty simple. You can take commodities from one place to another, that sort of jazz. Now, we're likely to actually see some form of cargo, or at least commodities-driven gameplay relatively soon in the mini-persistent universe. But trade and that travelling bazaar and shops, that is all going to be based on contracts. That's all going to be based on a little bit more gamey things than just moving cargo from one place to another and selling it to NPCs. And they've been talking about trade and how it will work, but I don't think they're fully clued up on exactly how they want the economy to work yet, and how they want trade to work yet. And that sort of stuff will be developed at the moment as we're playing in the mini persistent universe. As they start to implement the first implementations of that, we will be the influencers there. So make sure you get involved if you want to have a say about the way that trade, the direction it goes. It's very important. Now, we can't go by the stats on the stats page at the moment because they keep on changing. Everything's being refactored anyway. They keep on changing the weapon mounts. They are currently building out the Banu, and as we know with the ship, as they get further and further white boxed and then grey boxed, they change mounts, they change the way things work, they totally remove bits and put different bits there. It's all going to be based on what they find works. We know it was 100 meters in length, and that it was supposed to be the largest ship that can land on a planet. It should have its own components and weapons like Vandal ships do as well. So, although there will be standardized weapons and everything, the UEE are the weapons that we use normally in Arena Commander in the Persistent Universe. If you've got a Scythe or one of the Vandal ships, you'll be using Vandal weaponry. Now, you'll get that on the Banu ship. It's supposed to be a Banu ship. You might be able to change the weapons and items in those hardpoints to be not Banu, to be UEE or whatever, but it's whether those pipes and plugs on that system, on those hardpoints, allow for that. So you might be able to put some weapons but not others, or you might have to have just Banu weaponry on your ship. I would expect the ship to be fitted for dealing with pirates, so a mixture of anti-fighter and anti-boarding ship weapons, but also a heavy shield and strong front-throwing weapons to punch through blockades. It's supposed to be a blockade runner as well. Now, the Banu weaponry is similar to that of the tech level of humans. The Banu has been compared to the Hull C. The advantage of the Hull C is the modularity, where the Banu Merchantman will allow you to swap fixed hardpoints. The Hull C gives you an entire spindle of attachment points to access. The Hull C is also intended to be more common and less expensive than the Merchantman. But when you're really comparing haulers and trade ships and that sort of stuff, the Banu Merchantman is supposed to be rare, it's supposed to be fast, it's big, very big, and it's going to have a load of crew stations. Now, the original concept had 8 crew stations, but we don't know how this could have evolved. I'm not entirely sure what all those crew would be doing anyway. Maybe they're just manning turrets, but they could be doing a load of different stuff. Will you need NPC crew or will you need real crew? Now, I think with some of these trade ships, you might be okay just with NPC crew because they can just be manning turrets. But if there are some other deeper level trade aspects that I don't know about yet, maybe you need security on ship if you're receiving guests and are having some sort of black market shop. Maybe you've got invited some pirates onto the ship to do some trade with even, and you're going to need security for that. There could be lots of levels of trade that I'm unaware of yet, but just keep that in mind. It is a big ship and they originally concepted it to have 8 crew stations. So where is my Banu Merchantman? It appears that Foundry 42 are working on the Banu, or at least allocated to it in some way. The infamous whiteboard in Around the Verse episode 100 part 2 showed that in the design brief that it's allocated to that studio. Now, Foundry 42 UK's main purpose at the moment is to get Squadron 42 episode 1 done and all of the ships that are needed for that done first. This might be a good thing, however, because Squadron 42 is pegged for a release of end of 2016. So, once they've got that out of the way, once they've got that locked down, there's going to be a lot of attention getting that Banu Merchantman ready. This is one of the ships that has had a lot of people talking that they want it done. But it is a huge ship. It is a very big ship with a very important mechanic that needs to be done correctly. The lessons learned from Squadron 42's massive ships, the pipeline that they've developed there, how these big ships work in engine, they've got that working. They can then learn all that jazz and turn their gaze to getting to the Merchantman into the PU, so that I would kind of expect the Merchantman to come out hangar ready in some sort of side docked hangar way, or some sort of new hangar maybe, because probably park in Port Olisar or something, wouldn't they? After Squadron 42's out, but quite soon after Squadron 42's out. I genuinely would expect we will start to see big progress on the Merchantman towards the end of this year, towards the end of 2016, and then possibly something very tangible, like hangar ready, towards the beginning of 2017. I don't want to overly hype people, I don't want to promise things that I don't know, because I can't, because I don't know them, but knowing what Foundry 42 do with ships, it's likely that the Merchantman has grown in scale somewhat. Seeing the way the Idris developed from corvette to frigate, I would expect the Banu Merchantman to have grown. I mean, look at the Caterpillar as well. I mean, the Caterpillar was only supposed to be 65 meters long, and now it's 100 meters long. All these kind of trade ships, all these kind of big mechanic ships, they're growing in size because they've realised that there needs to be a lot put in them. There needs to be a lot done with them. Now, the Merchantman was already quite wide and all that, so we'll have to wait and see exactly how that turns out. For me, I quite enjoy trade and cargo running. It can get boring though, and the Banu Merchantman allows for a lot more gameplay, or at least promises a lot more gameplay than a standard cargo hauler. It's going to be rare, it's going to have that smuggling aspect, it's going to be a Q ship, it's going to be a blockade runner, and I do think it will be able to suit all of those needs, though you might have to outfit it for those intended purposes. The ship was on sale for $250 excluding taxes, and I would expect it to go on sale a couple more times, at least before it's hangar ready at that price too. Then I would expect it to go up in price to at least $350, if not more. Be aware that you can get all these ships in game, but also be aware that although it might be obtainable in verse, the Merchantman specifically, similar to the Vandal ships, is likely to be pretty rare and or expensive in verse. So just, again, bear that in mind. Yeah. We are going to be waiting a little longer for the Banu Merchantman. Hopefully that will sate some of your answers of where's my Banu. But we will get more info on trade, cargo, and the Banu soon. So hopefully that will give us a little bit more juice or meat to sink our teeth into. And hopefully in the not too distant future, we should have the Banu as well. Now, please guys, tell me what you think about the Banu. Is it a ship that you're really, really after? Are you really into trade? Are you really into cargo? Are you going, don't need a Banu, I want the Hull C, it'll be done much sooner anyway, something like that? Or don't you care about any of the economy-based stuff and are just into bounty hunting or combat or first-person shooter stuff? Please tell me in the comments below, it really does help me. Also, we've got that Dragonfly to give away. Just comment on any of our star sets and content throughout July to be in for a chance to win that. And if it's not July anymore, we'll have a different ship to give away, almost certainly. And for the very similar rules, just comment on any of our content on that given month. But anyway, guys, I hope that was informative, or at least interesting, or even just a regurgitation of some history that you might have known, a refresher course, if you will. And if you'd like to see more videos on Star Citizen and Squadron 42, especially pertaining to news, guides, tutorials, how-tos, rants like this one, ship buyers guides, theorycraft, and all that sort of jazz, then please like and subscribe. It really does help me, and I will see you guys in the verse.